Now, this has taken me a little bit of time because I was, I was asking Mom and Crystal about this today. When you guys knit anything lacy or crochet anything lacy, do you use the chart or the written out pattern? It turns out I have a lot of trouble with the written out pattern. I did so much better with the chart. So last night I was working on this and I ripped it out several times because I was trying to use the written out pattern thinking it would be easier. But no, the chart was just more concise and to the point. So that is Nymphola. So like I said, I've been doing a good bit of knitting, but it's all little tiny bits and a lot of prep work for actually getting into my projects. The other thing I did was, since Nymphola is in the Noro 20 magazine, I can show you a picture of her. Isn't that cute? Love that. I think it'll be awesome for transitioning. No, no, just kind of looks for. I thought this one was crocheted when I first saw it too. But the pattern is actually super small in the book. As you can see, teeny tiny print. So I took some time and sort of prepped my pattern so that it would be easier to work with. So I have a little scanning program on my phone. So what I did was I just scanned each of it in bits so that each part would fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and blew everything up so it's nice and big. So that might be something you guys might want to try on your next project so that you can just work with it more easily. I just found that just works so much better for me. But that is all of my knitting for this week. That's what I've been up to. It's both a lot and a little.
I was very curious what you meant.
So what's your swatching process like? As you can see, I don't do the 4-inch swatch just because I don't always get a true gauge from that. How are your swatches?
I do swatches that are bigger than the 4 inches now. Yeah, I do bigger swatches. I don't know. I don't think of myself as having a swatching process.
But you do.
And because when I'm swatching, because I'm not working from a pattern, I'm actually swatching to figure out what stitch pattern I'm going to be using. And I have to see what looks good in the yarn and decide what hook size I'm going to use because I don't already have that information. So I end up doing a lot of swatches.
Yeah.
I am averaging at least 3 swatches per project. And sometimes, like, if I just want to see a stitch pattern, I might work the swatch a little bit smaller. But then once I've decided which one I'm going to use, then I still have to make that one bigger, blow it up a little bit so that I can take my measurements from it. So swatching can be quite time consuming. I did quite a few swatches for the handkerchief hem top.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do something very simple. And so the ripple pattern is just all double crochet. The whole pattern, the stitch pattern from the book was double crochet. I added rows of single crochet in between each row of double crochet because I just think it looks better. I don't like the look of double crochet stacked on top of each other. So it just changes the texture a little bit to just do a row of single crochet between rows of double crochet. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my swatching process is.
Well, you just told us.
She's always saying like I have a process for this or a process for that. I don't know.
So you told us that you make a smaller swatch just to determine, okay, do I like the stitch pattern? Is this going to work for me? And then you make a larger swatch in order to have something to measure.
Right.
Okay. So
I guess that's my process.
It sure is. Yeah. Hello.
I don't think about it at all when I'm doing it. And I've been thinking about the fact that I want to figure out what my process is and maybe like write a blog post about it. So I want to be able to talk about how I design things, but I feel very like haphazard when I'm doing it. So I'm not thinking in terms of like an ordinal list of steps, but I would like to be able to figure that out because I still feel like I'm just all over the place.
Well, you know what? I think it'd be hard to come up with an ordinal list of steps just off the top of your head. But I think what you might want to do is just write out what it is you're doing, whatever order it comes to you, and then reorganize that into something more orderly that somebody could follow. You know, as you think of it, just write it down.
We'll see.
You can do it. You can do it. But when I'm swatching, I may not. You see me when I'm swatching. I'm ripping the swatch out constantly. I'm like, oh, this cast on is not working for me, or I don't like the fabric. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's what got me comfortable with changing the yarn that the thing was called for to begin with. Because I did so many swatches and so much swatching, I could see, okay, this, like, I decided to go with Cumulus because I like Cumulus, and the yarn that they suggested for it had some acrylic in it, and I knew that would be too heavy for what the time I was going to be wearing it, and I knew I wanted to use Cumulus. But what settled Cumulus in my mind was when I looked at the base gauge from the yarn that they suggested in the pattern, and it was like 4 to 5 stitches per inch. And Cumulus can knit anywhere from 4.5 to 5.5 stitches per inch. So they were in the same wheelhouse, you know, and it would be more appropriate for the weather I plan to wear this in. So that's what really made me go. And then when I started swatching it and it was holding the pattern so beautifully, I was like, yep, that's the one for me. But I would not have known it would work well unless I swatched it. And I think that is a sticking point for people, why they stick to the pattern, to the yarn in the pattern. Because if you don't swatch enough, you don't really know what other yarn can work.
I used to think it was a one and done swatching situation. It's not. It's so not. I don't know where I got that idea from.
We all start that way.
And if you asked me, I would have told you swatching is my first step when I design something, but I realized with the handkerchief hem top, which was a dress at one point, that it's not my first step. My first step is deciding what shapes I'm making, because that will inform my choice of stitch pattern. So swatching isn't even like the first thing you have to do. We all want to play with the yarn. Like we all just want to grab the yarn and go. But there's stuff that you got to do before you touch the yarn.
I used to think that casting on was the beginning of the project, and it's so not. It is so not.
Lisa spends a lot of time with her patterns before she stitches anything. Really like going through and figuring out what she's going to have to do and matching the stitch gauge like you talked about with the Cumulus. So she has a process.